is it real? Rappers acting say they high, say they sipping pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up, had to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in the field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Took the way you saw the world, then distorted it. Now you think you wanna rock that twirl somewhere orbiting. Theories disproportionate, the truth distorted quick with a forceful grip. They force a simple that we absorbing quick. Took the people's signature that mean extorted it. They forging it. If news anchors informant to informing them there's a surplus, but they tell us there are shortages. Credit economy mortgages, dollar that's supported with empty fortresses. But what's important is this: we courting ships, important gifts. Of course it is what extortion is in accordance with an assortment list of foreign tricks. We ignoring which informant this, informant this. It looked like we were snoring tricked. Pedophilia and the government endorsing it. Yeah, eugenics is exactly what abortion is. You just vilify those insubordinate. Way to matrix engineer, that's unfortunate. Geopolitically we in a field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Rappers actors say they high, say they sip with pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up just to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in a field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real?
In a world. All right, what up, fam? So we got a cool show tonight. I am excited about it. The audio should be good. It's titled "What Your Doctor Doesn't Understand About Health," and it is the title of a book that I have read and I think is epic. And so I figure, why not have the author of said book come on and talk to us about it? It's pretty cool. I encourage everyone to stay open-minded. And you are in for a treat, in my opinion. So we'll just get straight to it. We are on Rumble, X, and YouTube. If you want to support the stream, links in the description. Also, if you want to grab the book, it's the top link in the description. You can also go to Amazon and look up What Your Doctor Doesn't Understand About Health, but I put a quick little short link in the description. So without further ado, let's bring on my boy Peter. Brother, what's going on? Thanks for jumping on.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. This I've said for quite a while. This is one of the best channels on YouTube, in my opinion. So appreciate the fact that you recognize the value in what I was doing and wanted to share my message.
Yeah, thank you for the compliment, brother. You guys let me know if the audio is unbalanced or anything, and we'll try and I'll figure it out if I'm louder than him. So, okay, let's maybe start with this. If you want to give kind of the general premise of the book, because obviously it's a pretty provocative title, right? What your doctor doesn't understand about health. You kind of maybe tell the people what you mean about, like, with that title, or you know, the general premise.
Sort of like how it all got started.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so for starting around 2018 or so, I started becoming just like severely chronically ill to the point that when it was at its worst, I wasn't sure I was even going to make it much longer. And through just like starting to be sick and starting to, when I started, I kind of had this perspective that I knew that doctors, they like were prescribing drugs to treat symptoms and not cure things. So I went to like look for functional medicine practitioners and naturopaths. And I tried doing what a bunch of these different people said. I tried all sorts of different things. I was one of these people who, maybe anyone who's also had a chronic illness knows that these functional medicine practitioners will send you just these boxes of tests and then like more and more boxes and boxes of supplements. And they had me on all these like specific plans and all this, and essentially everything that they told me to do either did not work or just it made me feel worse. So one day I was just kind of fed up with it all, and I just decided I'm gonna have to figure this out for myself because these people don't know what they're doing. And around that time is when I found this book called What Really Makes You Ill by Don Lester and David Parker. And that one really opened my eyes to this whole idea of terrain theory. And basically the whole book just, it establishes like every disease, main disease, and then just debunks how any of them could be caused by germs or pathogens. And so after I read that, I started like seeing these doctors on YouTube, like who would speak about terrain theory, and the things that they were saying it made a lot more sense to me than the germ theory people. And so I started adopting that frame of mind, and I try to use that in order to like avoid as many toxins as I could, ensure that like I was eating as healthy as I possibly could, and that wasn't making me any better either. So I sort of had to like start to try to figure it out on my own because it didn't seem like anything anybody was saying was making sense. So eventually I started having learning a bit about manifestation, and I started recognizing that there is something to it there. I know that there's a lot of like misinformation about it. And that's because like the whole new age spiritual movement is built on foundation of lies, just like the entire medical system. Most things in our reality are all built on foundational lies. Anyway, so I started realizing that my mind has power over my external reality. And that sort of led me to start having this idea that, well, maybe what's causing the disease is a psychological issue. And that's sort of like what led me down this path of starting to like test for that and see how I could see if there was some aspect of parts of me that I could cure based on this idea. And it turned out to be legit. So that was when I started to realize I got to start telling other people about this, because even the people who are like awake talking about medicine, they're not talking about this. I don't know why, but it's, from my experience, it's the only thing that fits.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. So you did mention David Parker and Don Lester. We had them on one of the summits. They are very cool. So they're big terrain theory proponents. So you mentioned the book, What Really Makes You Ill. So, I mean, for me, right, I'll say the reason I found your book so interesting was because obviously I went through like kind of a similar path in terms of like what makes you sick, right? Germ theories, bunk, a bunch of models, a bunch of pseudoscience, terrain theory, much more legit. But there's definitely like something else to it. And yeah, it just made a lot of things click for me. I know I don't want to like give away much what's in the book necessarily, or I'll leave that up to you.
But you could give stuff away. It's no problem. You're muted. You're still muted. Can't hear you. Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? There we go. It swapped my audio in for some reason. I'm like, what the heck? I'm watching my audio work. All right, anyway, that was really weird. And it was really weird too because my power just randomly cut off right before the stream. I'm like, something doesn't want us to talk about this. I don't know. Anyway, okay, so you can hear me now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you mentioned in the book, you were watching Joe Rogan, you saw a doctor on there, and you thought that he would he'd be able to help you out. And so, just in general, I guess, I don't know how much you wanna talk about, like, exactly what you were dealing with or whatever, but the general idea of it was just like you said, you had a bunch of stuff going on, and, no doctors were really able to even tell you what it was, and I know so many people that deal with this. They're diagnosed with, like, 20 different things over the course of a few years. They're just throwing stuff at the wall, making stuff up, and then they're putting them on stuff that just suppress their symptoms a little bit and ends up making them way sicker, you know? So anyway, yeah, do you wanna just you
I
lead
can
us
address that.
what you think, 'cause this is a pretty obviously, people are already just like, "What do you mean?" You know, the idea that
Yeah.
your mind is super powerful. I mean, I think I'll say this one last thing, when I toss it back over to you, just a kind of intro to the concept. Everyone already believes in the concept because there's placebo and nocebo, right? So we already know the mind is in fact very powerful just with the well-established placebo effect. But yeah, anyway, I'll toss it back over to you to kinda maybe pick it up there and explain the concept to people or whatever you wanna say.
Yeah, I mean, I would have kept going before, but I didn't want to just like hijack the whole show. I was trying to,
You're good,
but
brother, you're good.
yeah. So the placebo effect, obviously, like that's like one of the central themes to the whole book is this idea that in conventional medicine, the placebo effect is treated as something that needs to be like screened out, and it's sort of like a footnote. When in reality, that should, like, the placebo effect should be the headlining thing, where it's like, oh, people are actually getting better because they're not because they're taking any actual legitimate therapy. They're getting better because they're believing that what they're taking is going to make them better. It's sort of like those if you remember, like those late night infomercials that would tell people, buy this pill and you will lose weight, and they were on for like years and years and years, and I was always like, how do people believe like that's even real, or how are they even making money? But the fact of the matter is, probably they are making money because probably it's working, since people are buying it and they're believing that they're going to take it and they're going to lose weight, and then they're losing weight. So yeah, the big so in the book, one of the first things I do is I essentially break down like my I guess I call it like a thesis of what percentage each aspect plays towards health and disease. Because you were mentioning about what really makes you ill, and to be fair to that book, it did mention that stress was a big factor. But from what I've learned, stress is a much more significant factor than that. And the terrain idea is it's maybe only like 15% of it all. So the way that I've come to understand this is that belief is the primary mover. If you are like very sick, it's something that you're believing that's causing that. And when we hear this idea of, oh, there's just a belief that's wrong, it's not just a surface thing. It's an underlying thing, something like under the surface that you're not consciously aware of, but is leading you to feel very stressed. And this stress gets lodged and stored in the body. And when it does, based on what the issue is that you're being stressed about, is how it ends up expressing itself and manifesting as your sickness. So another common thing that I repeat many times in the book is that you should think of your symptoms as if they are literal metaphors for the problems you're having in your life. So one problem that I was having was that I had an issue with setting boundaries in a certain situation. And I go in a little more detail about it in the book, but the whole idea is, when I was refusing to set these boundaries, I knew that I was like how I looked and viewed myself. I feel that I was a person who deserved respect and deserved to be treated with respect. And my choice to ignore or not speak up about these boundaries created this massive conflict for me. So the more that I did that, the more that it sort of like brewed up inside me, and that those emotions they got stuck. And when that happens, it ends up manifesting itself as a sickness. So the big message in the book is essentially that you should look to what's causing stress in your life. And this is not like the type of stress of being in traffic. It's this deeper stuff that is under the surface, and you have to do some psychoanalysis on yourself to sort of figure it out. But all throughout the book, I have all these, there's a ton of personal examples of what I actually experienced and how I came to these conclusions that should help people to sort of like maybe jog their memory or something, or to point to them, oh, maybe this is what's going on with me. And then I also have a bunch of other just basic strategies and suggestions for how you go about figuring out what your conflict is. And the big thing that I try to emphasize in there is there's this other book that I found after I wrote mine, but it ended up like confirming almost everything that I said. But it did more than that. It took it a step further. It had already gone and sort of indexed all of like basically every symptom that a human could feel or could experience, and explain what the type of conflict is, along with other examples of people who came in with that illness, and then how the conflict that they had in common with all the other people who had that same illness, and then how they went about resolving the conflict, because that's how you end up curing yourself, is resolving yourself of this conflict, because then the body no longer has this stress stored inside of it. It's able to release it.
Yeah, and real quick, I mean, it just makes a ton of sense, right? Because what always happens is doctors will tell you that stress will basically like increase your symptoms severity, right? Or like say you have like psoriasis or something. My dad has psoriasis. He says like the breakouts come when he is under a lot of stress. They're like more intense or whatever. So it's like well acknowledged that stress is an important variable. But like you said, yeah, it's so profound what you just pointed out. If you think about it, how the way that we look at placebo is kind of like this control variable. And no one really thinks about the fact that, well, what they're doing is literally curing themselves by just believing that they're being cured. But I will say this, what do you think about this, right? So like, obviously, I think one of the main reasons that this idea or your book, which I strongly encourage everyone to get the book. I'm legitimately a huge fan of the book. It's in the description. A pushback with the idea is that it's not as easy, right? So it's going to require internal reflection, accountability, honesty. It's going to require you to look through, who have I wronged, or what have I not like integrated and accepted? It may be all the way up to like certain traumas that you've had, or, whatever. This is why I find this also very interesting is lying, right? Because lying is shown to cause all kinds of ailments. But they just put a giant question mark on it. Why do people get sick when they lie? Well, because you're in like a heightened like state of anxiety, and you're constantly trying to manipulate and remember all the lies, right? So anyway, I know that was a lot there, but what do you kind of think about that? Like the reason may be as simple as the fact that it is not as easy to fix this, and it's also not as profitable to fix this with like this way, right? Like it's the same with like fasting. It's like, well, no one can make money off of you fasting, and it's difficult. You have to abstain. Or if a doctor will just say, hey, it's not your fault, here's some pills, it's easier. All right. So that's like the elephant in the room, I think, here, where people are like going to hear this idea and they're going to be like, oh, wait a minute, this requires like internal work and requires, so what you have a take on that? Any advice for people in terms of that? Because with your journey, obviously you've had to do that quite a bit. You've obviously probably developed a skill to be able to kind of narrow down what it is that you need to resolve.
Yeah. Before I address that, I just want to say one other thing about the book right now. So what I'm really hoping right now is that people who buy it will leave me reviews so that I can try to get it out to like a wider audience. So right now, for the next like 6 or 7 days, I've set the Kindle to just 99 cents. So it's only $1. But if you get it and you find value in it, I really, really appreciate anybody who would leave a review. And the other thing is that I didn't write this because I had any like need for people to think that I know what I'm saying or to make money. I'm already successful in what I've been doing the rest of my career. So It wasn't. It was only a matter of this information I felt was so important that I had to put it down. I had to say something because no one else is saying anything about it. And so you were asking about the. I was trying to keep.
The difficult, like the aspect of being able to figure out what within your life is the conflict that needs to be resolved, and kind of like, you know, it's a little difficult to maybe do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's harder than just taking a pill, right? But it's also a lot better than needing to do some sort of surgery or like all the weird things that these doctors will do to you. Like, you don't like, that's one thing that I definitely advise against is anything invasive. Like, there's no need for that. Yeah, you have to do a little bit of mental work, but what's the point of living if you're not going to like try to improve yourself? One thing that I say quite a bit is, like, when I realized how health and disease actually works, I recognize that these three phrases, spiritual ascension, personal growth, and physical healing, they're all essentially saying this. They mean the same thing. They all involve the same work. So yeah, I've done significant amounts of just trying to anytime. So like another thing that I talk about in the book is I give all of these ideas for how you go about figuring out. And I already said this, but I'm coming at it from a different angle now. So you can start looking at, like, whenever you feel negative emotions, this is a hint. Whenever the voice inside your head starts like criticizing you, this is a hint. Whenever like an incident in your life or a scenario plays out that you didn't want to happen, or that made you feel some sort of negative emotion, that's a hint. So anything that triggers you, that's another big hint. These are the things that lead to you figuring out what it is. So I've also found like a ton of success in having ChatGPT help me with this. And I think I don't remember if I specifically mentioned. I remember I was talking about this other book, but I don't think I named it. The other book that I found that was like so important is called The Psychic Roots of Disease. And anybody who resonates with this message I'm sending, that book is just as important, probably more important. My like the one that I wrote is more like trying to open people's eyes, saying this is how these diseases work, and this is how you go about curing them. But that Psychic Roots of Disease actually already laid out. It's like you can just look up what's your symptom, and then it'll tell you these are the conflicts. I don't know how well I answered your question. I know that you said a couple.
That's cool. You said the psychic.
Yeah, the psychic roots.
The psychic roots. Okay, yeah. I didn't know if you said second or psychic. Yeah. So this is what I like about your book, bro, is that it's just, you're so clearly just like telling your true experience, and then your story is just very interesting, right? Because to set that aside for a sec, what I was gonna say a second ago is kind of the implications of this are very intense. So if you really think about it, right? So the implications of what you're saying is that like going to the doctor and getting a diagnosis in and of itself is very dangerous. Okay, so you know, because you're going there, you're being told something from an assumed position of authority. Ostensibly, someone has more knowledge than you, right? And so they're telling you as if they know. Now, I know many doctors, and they all of them tell me that the vast majority of doctors don't actually even know, bro. And they go and they look it up in a computer, and then they come back. They literally type your symptoms up in a computer. Okay. Or they've just seen them so many times, they have like their stereotypical diagnosis. But the points I'm making here is that when they tell someone that they have a certain illness, they then try to understand it and begin to actually create that in their mind, to even understand it and visualize it, and then think it's in their body. And now they believe it's in there. They believe that's happening. And now they're causing themselves illness. And now that would be the implications of what you're suggesting, right? And then imagine if you drag it out to cancer and stuff, basically doctors are killing people. I mean, that's the actual like conclusion.
Yeah. When I was trying to market the book, I realized that's my that's the best thing to say is doctors' best strategy. So there are studies that you can find. You just do like a Google search, and this is like a common thing that you can find studies that all show that when doctors go on strike and when hospitals shut down, fewer people die. And so the slogan that I come up with is doctors' best strategy for lowering mortality rates is going on strike. And I know it sounds hyperbolic, but I mean, it's true. They're just, their entire model, their entire paradigm for how they're approaching disease is wrong. There's only a tiny part of it that may be right, which I address in the book. I give it like a maybe 5% of this whole idea of germs, but it's nothing in the way that they think. And yeah, if you go and you're getting like a cancer, this is what happens to people. They go and they get cancer diagnoses, and then it's the doctor like pushes them for chemotherapy. And instead of realizing that the majority of people, and this is like not even something that the mainstream refutes, but the majority of people who have cancer have had some like majorly tragic event happen in their lives that they have deep sorrow over. And what these people need is like some therapy, like not like the therapy that you would get from like BetterHelp, but some psychoanalysis, some figuring out like what is at the root of this? Why are you feeling this way? How do you reconcile it? How do you move forward in your life? I've noticed that even for myself, like maybe it's not the best idea to get into that story right now. It's a long story. I'll pass it back to you, and if you want me to talk about that, I can.
Well, I think that this is a good point to make, right? Because so people do one of a couple things. One is, like you said, they kind of like say they fold on their boundaries or what they know to be true for some alternative or ulterior motive, right? So for whatever reason, you allowed your boundaries. I've done the same thing, right? Like allowing your boundaries to consistently be crossed because the perceived alternative is something you don't want, or it's worse or whatever. But we don't realize maybe what that's actually doing to us. This is the part that I find super fascinating about the whole thing, and it resonates with me a ton. Like you say in the book, like treat it like a metaphor. That part of it is so profound and fascinating to me that the actual illness, it's like metaphoric in relation to the actual conflict that needs to be resolved. So it's like, that's wild, right? And of course, then one would think, okay, if enough energy and time was put into this, we would be able to actually start to really quickly be able to kind of figure out what's going on with people in general.
Real fast.
Yeah.
If I treated people, I would start figuring out all these things super fast. I mean, for me, one of my biggest symptoms was like severe constipation. And when you think about it, what did I need to do? I had this relationship with these boundary issues. I really needed to let go of that. Did you see that?
Yeah.
The constipation. You need to let go. It's like that.
Being comfortable with the loss of it.
There was another interview that I did, and some guy in the comment section started telling me about his experience, and I thought that it was like so on point for my message that I went back and I put it into the book. And essentially what this guy was saying is that he had been given this really rare diagnosis of some sort of like, I don't remember what it was named, but it was some sort of like warts like on inside of his throat or something. And then like I exchanged a couple of messages with him about it, and I was telling him how like stress is a big part of it. And he's like, yeah, I could see how that's the case because it happened at a time when he was working around a bunch of alpha males, he said, and he wasn't speaking up. He wasn't saying, and he wasn't like standing up for himself. And in return, he manifested something going on in his throat. So that's sort of like when we're talking about metaphors, those are two like examples of metaphors. They're not always that easy to suss out though.
But it's like whatever the kind of the author of this whole balance, that whatever it is, right? Like it does make sense that would be the case. And if it's not this like very direct elementary, like, visual metaphor, it makes sense that once you got to a better understanding of it, it would be directly related in some way. There's a physical manifestation of the internal or even metaphysical conflict. That's what's also so profound about this whole thing for me, is that it bridges over from the metaphysical, because we're talking about the mind. You know, and they say make up your mind, not make up your brain, right? Like there's a mind, there is a metaphysical component, like dreams, intuition, right? I mean, this place isn't just the matter that's here. And so this is literally bridging over into the physical, right? The source of the illness is some type of resonance in, like, metaphysically. But anyway, the point I wanted to throw out there real quick, and just a reminder to everyone, I did not know that, but the Kindle's only $1. You can get it and just read it, or you can order it. I got the physical copy here in a couple of days, and leave reviews to help a brother out, because you guys know that if you're speaking about anything that's not within kind of the cookie cutter approved section, right? They're not just going to throw you up at the top of something and promote your stuff. So, yeah, try to grab the book. I would suggest grabbing the physical copy, maybe do both so you can read it while it's on the way, and drop them some reviews. But this is what I want to say to you. What's interesting, have you ever heard, like, when they talk about drugs, right? They talk about medicines or whatever. They'll say it works for 80% of people. It works for 85% of people. And we just kind of accept this to somehow make sense, as if that 15 or 20% of people, there's just something wrong with their body, or their body is just different. But realistically, it may just be they don't believe it's going to do anything. Because, for example, when people have tried to convince me to take, like, Advil or whatever, like, I haven't taken, like, anything like that in so long, right? Like, super long time. But I don't believe it works. It doesn't work. So, but that's like a perfect example to me, is kind of like this Advil, Tylenol, all of which I would strongly discourage anyone from taking at all. But there are people that will say only Motrin works for me, only Advil works for me, right? They believe that. They literally believe that. So they have a headache. They're going to take a pill. They think, oh, this is the only thing we have is Tylenol. Tylenol doesn't really work for me. They're going to keep having a headache, or they're going to believe that the pill's going to actually work for them. Their headache's going to go away. So just because if you ever ask a doctor, why doesn't it work for the 15%? They don't know. They don't actually have, it's not like this is anything to do with science. So really the evidence is kind of on its face out there with the placebo, the nocebo, and the fact that these medicines, if you think about it in terms of physically, it's like if it does something physically to an organ, it should do that to everyone's organs. If it's not fixing it, then there's something else going on here. The evidence is kind of like on the surface right there in front of everyone that it is largely mental, I guess we could call it, right? Or metaphysical. So that was just a point I was making, because I know that when people first hear this, it's probably like, I don't know, it's probably not something for like I said, people even want to accept, because it kind of comes with some responsibility, or maybe it won't be as easy. But then you made a good point of like, okay, yeah, it's not as easy as taking a pill, but it's way easier than going through surgery. It's way easier than chemo. It's way easier than this other crazy stuff they do. And then B, it just kind of comes with self-accountability. So I guess what I am curious is, so you obviously kind of went through it yourself, and you wrote the book, I'm guessing, with the intention to kind of help some people not have to necessarily dig through each step like you did, right? Kind of like present it to them. Did you have like trial and errors, where like, how were you able to really isolate what the conflicts were? And then kind of how quickly did you see results, right, of the illness or the ailment or whatever kind of going away or curing?
Well, it was all kind of, this is over the course of many years that this went on. And what I did realize was, once I started, as I got away from the relationship that I was having issues with the boundaries, the longer that I separated myself from that, slowly I just got better. What was the turning point for me when I was like, oh, there absolutely is something to this, was the story in the book where I tell the scabies story. So I could tell that real quick. It's essentially, so I had gotten scabies are microscopic mites that they call it the 7-year itch. It's terrible. It itches like really badly. I had gotten it like 10 times over the course of 10 years, which is, mainstream tells you that you get it from skin to skin contact. But given my career, I was an online poker player, so I didn't really get out too much. I was kind of a recluse. So for me to be getting this 10 times in 10 years, it doesn't make any sense how that could be the case. I should be like the least likely person to get it. And around that time is when I was starting to get more into like the manifestation stuff, and I do talk about that in the book. I don't buy into most of the mainstream like manifestation coaches, like some of the stuff that they say is somewhat legitimate. My experience with it is intention is the most powerful thing. And this is what I use very frequently now. Like I will set my intentions for the following day of how I want it to play out, what I want to happen. If I'm about to go do something, I'll set my intentions to just have it. What I'll do is I'll ask ChatGPT to give me an intention to set. And then generally it works out. It doesn't always work out, but it works out more often than not. So I was in this situation with the scabies, and I knew I could cure it with all these drugs that I had, because I like had tons of drugs to cure it because I had gotten it so many times. But I knew that I was having this inclination that I didn't know it. I had this inclination that if I did it that way, I wasn't ever going to figure out why that kept happening, and I would end up like having to get them again and deal with it again. So I decided not to take the drugs. And I really just I had this idea that the mind is more powerful, and it could be that there's something I need to realize in order to sort of get rid of them. And so I went down that path of trying to see if that was legitimate. And it ended up working out. Like I ended up curing them without doing anything except making a realization in my head. And that was literally it. So, and they went away, which anybody who's had scabies knows it's like impossible to get rid of these things. It's not impossible, but it's like extremely difficult. And then I realized, I thought, well, I guess I just cured myself with my mind. So that was when it sort of hit me, where I'm like, there's absolutely something to this. And the thing about when I was pointing out the intentions was, you were saying, what was the thing? I set my intention to have an epiphany or a realization as to what that is. And that's something that I recommend in the book. And it's something that I still do not every day, but like as often as I can, is set my intentions to have more and more epiphanies and realizations, and to have a broader and wider perspective on reality. And it tends to work. I mean, I keep having more realizations and epiphanies. And this book, it's not been I sat down to write it one day and then it was done. It's probably on its like 50th or 60th version at this point, because as I was going along, I was learning more and more and more things. I actually even learned something significant in between. I sent it to Austin to read, and when I'm talking here today. And so like, even like yesterday, I went back and I had spent like 7 or 8 hours just going through and realizing, oh, I had this aspect wrong, and just going and changing it so that it represented my current perspective. Because I'm one who's always going to be open to new evidence whenever it offers itself to me, and I'm not like tied or married to any ideas. Only the truth. So if something in there is wrong and I figure that out, I'm gonna go back and change it. I decided that like I could have just waited until I felt so confident that I had everything perfect, but I think that's like, if I live my life that way, that I can't do anything until I have it absolutely perfectly, then I'm just gonna end up like stalling. So I figured like this piece of information is so important. This fact that I was able to cure the scabies with my mind, and I had like an actual legitimate explanation with all this other stuff that backed it up. And then I could point to these. I found, after I made this realization, I had found these other books, not just these ones that I've mentioned, but some other ones also that sort of say the similar things, similar ideas. And so those all kind of confirmed what I had realized. I don't remember where else I was going with that, but I think that.
Well, I just think in general, man, I think this is so fascinating. I think that's such a great example, right? I mean, how would one kind of wiggle their way out of that, where certainly if it's like this microscopic invasive type of element, and then you're able to kind of cure it with your mind. Because like one thing I'm a huge proponent of, and I say consistently, that the body itself is incredible. I think the evidence for that's pretty overwhelming, right? You cut your hand and, everything the body does is basically a healing mechanism, and then it's demonized by modern medicine. So like inflammation's incredible. Like if you get a really severe ankle sprain, right, you're actually partially tearing a tendon, and then your ankle gets really swollen. That inflammation is padding and protecting the ankle, right? So if there's inflammation there, then yeah, logically there's an issue, but the inflammation itself is good. And so but my point is just that um, the body is very powerful, right? Like, and that's why I think fasting helps so many people out. And it makes a ton of sense that so is the mind. And that really, if you now pair these two things and you zoom out, like the truth is abundantly simple and very obvious. It's like your mind and your body are very simple. Your mind is kind of telling your body what to do. And so when they're not in alignment, right, it can't properly do that. Right. So is that kind of how you see it? That basically the mind is kind of delivering these ongoing instructions to the functioning of the body. But when there's something going on where there's conflict, right? So there's some type of disorder in the mind, and it kind of just spills over into the body, meaning like it's not actually properly instructing the body. Or how do you see kind of like that whole type of like interaction in of itself? That's a pretty obviously that may be an unanswerable question, to be honest, but like what exactly is the connection?
Well, first I'll say this short thing. From my perspective and everything, I don't just only look at health like this is just the one thing that I saw that no one was talking about, so I thought I needed to say something. But I'm into like all the conspiracies, and I'm into like trying to figure out what's actually the real nature of reality and where are we and these kind of things. And these things they're more interesting to me than health. But the whole point of saying this is that I'm pretty confident I can prove that consciousness creates matter. And essentially, I would say that through what we find when we look at gematria. Because in gematria, what we see is that all of these seemingly somewhat random occurrences somehow all can be tied together through these numbers. Especially like there's this one really weird thing where I was looking at a gematria guy talk about Paul Walker's life in his movies, and he was able to like use the names of the movies and take those names and convert them into the numbers in gematria, along with the dates that they were released. And each movie, the numbers specifically related to the next movie that the numbers wouldn't have done so if the title was different or if it was on a different day. And so the whole point of this is that whatever created this reality here, that concept of things that are like associate together somehow is the way that the astral and the greater reality that we can't see, that's what it's based upon. And so the whole point by bringing that up was to say that, yeah, like I don't see the body as all that powerful. I see it as intelligent to an extent, but I see the mind, and the body reads the mind, and the mind sort of, when it's got these conflicts, like you were saying, and I don't even want to say it instructs. It's like the body picks up on it and then manifests it. So it's like if you have a belief that like your life is terrible and it's never going to get better and there's nothing that you can possibly do to improve things, like this is something that the body's going to pick up on, and it could end up manifesting at all sorts of different potential issues. Another thing that I was talking about in the book, what was a big thing for me was this whole idea of like what's causing weight gain and weight loss. Because maybe about like 10 or 12 years ago, I had ballooned up to like 210 pounds or something, which about 160 is my general, like the place like where I'm most comfortable. And when that happened, I started thinking I needed to look into like how to diet because I needed to lose weight. And so I found about keto diets, and I decided I was going to do that. And the whole concept was if you have less than 25 grams of carbs a day, then your body will go into ketosis and you'll lose weight. And so I went and I did that, and I was drinking a lot at the time. But I thought, well, I guess it doesn't matter if I'm drinking a lot, because the whole idea is I just have standard 25 grams of carbs. So while drinking pretty heavily over this period of time, I managed to eat this keto diet and lose 50 pounds over the course of literally 3 months and without doing any exercise at all. So when it comes to that, like obviously the calories like don't make any sense if that's the case, because I was drinking like 1,500 calories a day. And so that's another thing I talk about in the book, is how the idea of a calorie is a hypothetical construct. It's not a real thing. And it doesn't actually even make sense in the real world, because we can have people who have caloric deficits and gain weight, and people who have caloric surpluses and lose weight for different reasons. And so after that, I went through about like a 9 or 10 year period of just like consistently eating that keto diet. And I stayed between like 12 to 15% body fat through that time. And then it was like maybe a year or 2 years ago or so, or a year and a half ago, somewhere around there, where I decided I was going to quit drinking. And so I did. I like after like 15 years of drinking like almost every day, I just quit. And I got into about a year into quitting, or no, I'm getting ahead of myself. Almost like the next few months after quitting drinking, I started putting on weight. And it's like, if I'm quitting drinking, shouldn't I be like losing weight? Why am I putting on weight? It's like I was drinking and I lost weight, and then I stopped drinking and then I started gaining weight. And so it was this like big conundrum for me, because I was like, my diet wasn't changing, but I put on like 30 extra pounds, and I'm like, what is going on? And this was something that was like eating away at me for a while, and that itself could be a conflict, right? So what I ended up realizing was that the way the body instructs the mind, or the way mind instructs the body, it can happen in like the way that it did for me was it stopped, my body stopped producing, it was putting out too little T4 for the thyroid. So when your body puts out too little T4, then it creates a bottleneck for your other hormonal outputs. So like your testosterone and estradiol and insulin resistance and leptins, all that stuff will get pushed in a bottleneck, and that all goes down too. And what I eventually realized was that I was having this belief that I wasn't seeing how my life was going to be getting better, and I didn't really expect that it was going to get better. And that ended up being like my needing to recognize that I needed to like have more forward motion in my life and not just like be stagnant. So I know that you asked me a question and I just sort of went on a huge tangent.
No, you're good. I think that's pretty interesting, the way that you say it, right? Because if you look at like an etheric type of perspective, right? I mean, Tesla said that when the ether is thrown into infinitesimal, prodigious worlds of velocity, it manifests as matter. You know, it's like really small little like vortices, basically. And that when that energy resides, it reverts back into the ether. The implications of that being that consciousness can certainly create matter and then change the very like fabric of the matter, right? The very resonance of what holds it together. So actually, I think I do resonate more with kind of that idea, which is that the mind, which I would say is connected to kind of like the spirit. Like I think that's all just we just have some titles we throw on the fact that we know that kind of the core thing that keeps us running and helps us think is just not limited to matter. You know, I think that we just call things names, but anyway, that maybe, yeah, it's like a resonance thing, right? Like it's the body, you said picked up on it, like it kind of things deteriorate or stop working properly or whatever. When you're kind of sending out these signals of say fear, anxiety, whatever it is, doubt, regret, guilt, shame. Would you agree that kind of all those things are kind of the staples of what will cause pretty serious illness?
In the mainstream, most people do agree that like just if you're depressed, like that's that can be a cause of gaining weight, right? So like that's how I should have tied the whole story together, was this being depressed, and everybody already, or a lot of people do already think that has something to do with it, but it's this recognition, like what is the reason that you're having this depression? How, like, why are you feeling that way? Because whatever you're believing that's causing you to feel that way is what your body is picking up on and manifesting itself as a result. Because based on my experience, clearly what I ate had little to do with whether I gained or lost weight. I mean, it did to an extent, but like any rational person would think that I would drink and gain weight or stop drinking and lose weight, but it was the complete opposite, right?
Yeah, and like kind of what I found about that is it's way less about what you eat and way more about when. But who knows? I think obviously they're both important. Like you said, you wouldn't just want to pick one thing and say like because there's so much misinformation around these other topics where we'll just say it's only the mind. Like obviously there's all kinds of toxins and endocrine disruptors and crazy things that are kind of in our environment, for forever particles or whatever that we're putting in our body, and there's like all kinds of just unnatural genetically modified food, blah blah blah, right? I think that we kind of agree on all those things. I'm sure, right, that there is
It's
like
not
many
good.
kind of variables.
Yeah, it's not good to drink dirty water and to inhale air with chemtrails, right? But what one thing that I try to point out in the book and is that what are the things that conventional medicine actually can't explain and acknowledge that they can't explain. So things like how two people can have the same bacteria, but one's like chronically ill and the other's like totally healthy. Or like, why is it some people, like everybody knows somebody who just eats a terrible diet, but stays like fit and slim, right? There's all these different like contradictions. And so when I use these things as my basis for trying to build the framework of how this all works. And so what I've come to understand, like what I've put together, it explains all of these things. And there was a reason I was bringing this up. And what was the last thing that you said, just to short my memory?
Just that there's like all kinds of different variables, right? Like even like when it comes to health, all the different things that we eat, et cetera. I just brought it up.
Yeah. So the whole point of all that was saying how, those things matter to an extent. Like you don't want to be drinking dirty water, but certain people end up being healthier. They're just healthier for some reason. Certain people, things just work out in their lives. Other people, just like things are constantly falling apart. They're constantly getting sick. Like why is that? Like the best explanation, and the only one that really makes the most sense, is it's not so much whether they're using like the perfect filtered water. It's more like, what are they believing about their lives, about where their lives are going, about how, like, what are they believing about the food they eat? So you're talking about diet, and here's the thing about diet is it doesn't really matter that much what your diet is. It matters to an extent, but it matters more like what you believe about the diet that you're eating. And I know that you're into like the fasting stuff and like intermittent fasting, those kind of things. I think that's great. Like personally, it's not really been my angle. So I don't like you would certainly know more about that than I would, but I do know that like absolutely there's plenty of evidence that shows that it does a lot of good for people. But with diet, it's just like, do you believe that what you're eating is healthy? Do you believe that, like, apparently what I'm thinking, what I've read in some of these other books is that what you're believing about what you eat your body will pick up on that and decide how to use the nutrients that it receives based on those beliefs. So if you're somebody who loves to eat ice cream, make sure you don't think that it's like bad for you. Like just enjoy it and indulge in it,
So a lot there, right? So this is because I was going to kind of see what your take and go that in direction about the fasting, because this is kind of my experience. I used to be that guy that would just eat anything and everything whenever I wanted to, didn't care at all, right? I used to drink a lot of Jameson, and then I would just eat a bunch of food, and then I just was unhealthy, right? I'd smoke a lot. I just would eat whatever I want. But like I've never like gained weight. Like this has never been a thing. And I realized that from a young age. And then so like I think my dad told me, yeah, I was a lot like that, but when you get around 30, it's going to change. Like that didn't happen. So what I realized is that I just believe I have a really good metabolism. I just believe that. So I do. Like, that's what I truly think right now. I think I just have always said out loud with conviction and believed that I have like a very good metabolism and that it's going to take care of whatever. And it always has. You know, people always like, they're like, oh, it must be easy for you to say. It's like, I'm just, okay, well, then you can have a bad metabolism. Cause I think that if now the tricky part, obviously, is to somehow be able to rewire the belief that you have in terms of, say, your metabolism. If you know, you're an adult and you've always thought of it as some way, or you have an experience where you gain weight or whatever. But so that's how I feel about that. And this is where I was going to kind of go with it is, I think I was wondering what your take is on like how strong kind of the subconscious component of this is, right? And again, we just like have all these titles for these things and they're different models, but the subconscious, the conscious mind, whatever. There is certainly an aspect of our mind that's seemingly subconscious, right? It's kind of taking care of tasks without us knowing, seemingly much more aware. And that's kind of how I rationalize the fasting tied to this, meaning that when you're not eating, it's just like you're not putting additional things in there for the body to even have to take care of. And so now it's able to just kind of start to get stuff situated. But I'm curious what you think about that, because obviously that's probably a harder part to train, right? And so I guess you're trying to maybe find the conflict and then accept that even probably subconsciously it's having effects because there's still this unresolved conflict, you know, in your life or in your conscious mind. Like, do you think there's like a big component of the subconscious as well?
I have some stuff to say about that. Yeah. Oh man, I just had it in mind. I'm trying to, like, when you're saying things, I'm like, oh, I got to talk about that. And then I'm not trying to interrupt you. And then you say something else. I'm like, oh, I got to say about that too.
You can always interrupt me. You can always interrupt me.
All right. Okay, the fasting thing. So I take the same perspective that you do on it, that when you, that your body is constantly working to like digest the food and to get the nutrients and do all these things and to detoxify all these kind of things. And when you stop eating, I don't know that this is true, but this is how I perceive it, that the body gets a break from doing all those other things and then can prioritize other issues that are more important. But so now I remember the other thing is getting back to the idea of the subconscious mind, and you're saying how you believe that you have fast metabolism and it just is. And so here's the big thing with this, and it's something that I only really realized recently. It's that you can have these, what you believe is very key, but if you have something under the surface that's blocking whatever belief you're trying to install, nothing's going to work. So if you are actually believing that you have a fast metabolism and you put on weight, this is a clear indication that there's something under the surface that's in the subconscious mind that you need to sort of analyze and try to figure out what that is. So like and this is how generally my experience of like manifestation has worked, is like what I believe tends to be the case as far as like what happens. Like the more I expect something to happen, not always, but the more often it tends to happen. And so if you're believing something and you know you're believing it, and then it's not working out in the way that you're expecting, that's your clue that you got to start going deeper, because there's something under there, some belief that you're having that you're not recognizing that's blocking your progress and sort of canceling that out.
Yeah, and I think like I've tried to tell people stuff like this all the time, but it's people get so sensitive. So like if people have been dealing with kind of like serious ailments and issues and they're popping up, right? They're going to all these doctors, they're taking all this medicine. Some will even say they're trying to go like the naturopathic way. They tried all kinds of different things and it seemingly doesn't really work, or things get worse, or they have new ailments pop up. Oftentimes they because of their ego, they let their ego get in their way of even like being receptive to the possibility of this, right? Because it would mean, well, you could have fixed this a long time ago. You have some internal work to do. You have maybe some direct responsibility. Yeah, it's crazy, bro, because with the fasting and with this, because for a while I've always said, look, if you keep saying that with such conviction, like it's going to happen. Like that's going to be the case. You're convincing me it's real because of how much conviction you say it with. So these people just start to say these things so often to people and believe them so much. I think that they just become a reality. And it's almost like you wouldn't even necessarily have free will if you couldn't do that, right? I mean, you believe it, you have a ton of conviction. So I'm really hoping the audience is able to read your book and read it without their ego, because it's going to have a lot of implications on their life, right? Where I don't know, it's just so wild to me, bro. Because like there's people who have cancer, but like, hey man, stop eating food for a little bit. Like do a fast. Like they die before they don't eat tons of food all the time. And it's like, hey, try and look into any type of internal conflicts that you have, or maybe someone that you wronged, or maybe something that you haven't integrated, and try and like start doing like this inner work and fix the things around you and cut the things out that are causing you some type of turmoil or conflict or disequilibrium or whatever, right? And examine your beliefs. Do the hard work of like looking into what do I believe and what's putting me in the situation, to be like, nah, bro, I'm good. I'll take my shots with chemo. Like it's that extreme. People have that much of denial when it comes to this, is my experience.
Those tend to be the people. It really is. They tend to be the sickest people are the ones in the most denial, because they have the most things going wrong in their lives. And the more things that you have going wrong in your life, the more of this underlying stress that you're going to have. So like one big issue that I've seen, especially like just in my experience of living, is seeing people who live in dysfunctional households. If there's like a lack of harmony in the household, and there's some sort of clash or significant issue between people, like someone important in your life or someone you're living with, and it's forcing you to sort of take your stress and not like feel it, just like bury it. That's your biggest clue. Like whatever is in, like if you're at a job where no one respects you and you're just walked all over and you can't and you don't make enough money or whatever, like this is a big clue. Like this is and if you're sick, that's very likely the cause. So like whatever are the big problems in your life, those are the things that you want to focus on. I mean, like there's two ways to do it. You could just fix the problem by like getting rid of it, by either quitting that job or pushing this person away that's causing this, or you can learn about yourself and about why it is that this is happening. Sometimes you do still have to do the physical thing, but other times you can just understand everything that's going on with it, and then recognize it, acknowledge it, and recognize it, and then allow it to just be, and to not let it bother you in the same way. Because that's really what's causing it, is that you're feeling bothered by whatever's happening in your life, and you're storing that somewhere in your body, and then it's expressing itself as a sickness. So that's why when you take whatever drugs or even like supplements, sometimes supplements work. For me, they never worked. But like how can those supplements fix this stress in there, that when this repeated instance, these repeated instances continue happening in your life, that's kind of the point, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I would say obviously the solution, right, is to do it all, right? It's to try to eat healthy, try to control when you eat, try to be physically active, try to get sunlight, try to ground, try to drink clean water, try to get good sleep, and try to like eliminate the conflicts in your life. Do the inner work where you kind of are able to integrate whatever's occurred, and then kind of make the tough decisions. Maybe I think oftentimes people have things they need to cut out of their lives. And I have a lot of experience even recently with a lot of this stuff, actually. I don't want to get into right now or anything, but I do think I have this really deep rooted belief that everything always works out. Like I truly believe it. So I think that helps me deal with a lot of stress, right? Like what would be really stressful for a lot of people, I think if people even kind of could see maybe some of the stuff, they'd be like, oh my gosh, and they start getting stressed when I tell them about it. And even though I do have to fight to remind myself to not allow it to be like that. I think it's such an advantage to have just this like foundational belief that whether you can explain it or not, you just know that you're going to be okay. So you're not like really living in fear or whatever. I have that overlap with my health as well, because I think the same thing. I just think like, I mean, some people maybe call this arrogant or something, but I encourage them to try to adopt the same mentality. I just literally think I view it like I'm not gonna get sick. I don't get sick, and like if I start to feel sick, it's like I can quickly find out what's going on. I don't know what you think about this, but like those things for me, those are so foundational for me. And then the fruits kind of show that they do prevent me from ever like getting really sick. But there are other things that I've dealt with, even recently. I've had like stuff pop up on my eyes, and both my eyes would get puffy and like basically looks like psoriasis, like scaly stuff. That would happen, and that would happen directly in the midst of conflict. And it would be more intense during the conflict. And when the conflict was resolved, it'd go away. But when I was kind of like not facing it for what it is or in denial of it or whatever, it would linger. And it's crazy that I then come across your book around this time, right? Because like when I fully resolve or eliminate that variable, my eyes are fine.
Yeah, I mean, the whole this is how reality works. What you believe tends to be what happens. And I would like, it is a very favorable and advantageous position to adopt what I would call irrational overconfidence, where it's exactly like you're saying. You're like, you don't have necessarily a reason to believe that you don't get sick, but that doesn't matter, because if you understand how reality works, then like it would be disadvantageous to be like cautiously rational versus irrationally, or what am I trying to say? It would be like self-defeatist to take the mindset of like trying to be like what's the word I'm looking for? Not irrationally overconfident, the opposite. I don't know. Hopefully people get sort of the idea that I'm saying. It's essentially what Austin was just saying. I agree with it. That's how I lived most of my life before I knew any of this stuff. My whole issue came up with, I lived like how you just described. I didn't really worry about anything. I just sort of lived my life, and things worked out. And then I went to this period of just like getting like so sick that it breaks you down when you can't live your life the way, like you can't go out, you can't see people, you can't do anything, you just feel terrible all the time, just laying there, and you lose a lot of hope. And that it really took me to this like dark place that I'm clearly still in the process of overcoming, though I'm getting a lot closer. But like it was like a 6-7 year period where like my whole life just totally changed. So it's more, what I'm trying to say is it's more difficult to build from that state of trying to create everything into getting to that point of, yeah, I don't even get sick, and that's just how it is. And so it's easier when you start from being younger and you don't really have anything like major that sort of sets up this big block for you, which is kind of what happened to me. But the people who are going through it, like I've been going through it, and I mean, things are looking up for me. Like I published this book, and I'm on podcasts talking about it. So it's just a matter of figuring out how, like, understanding how to go about figuring out what's wrong, and then figuring it out, and then being honest with yourself. Like it's all about like you cannot lie to yourself. If you lie to yourself, it's going to make you sick in some way or another.
Dude, I think that is a huge one, man. Like, dude, I think that's a huge one. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I just like, bro, I think that is the big one, right? Is that what happens is if we do something wrong, or we wrong someone, or like a failure of a relationship is our fault, or whatever our role in it is, or whatever it is, right? There is this like instinct, this egotistical instinct to blame shift it away and make an excuse and justify it or whatever. And so then we start coming up with a story, and people lie to themselves. I see people lie to themselves in a matter of minutes, like revise a conversation they just had, revise a conversation the next day. And I think, yeah, I'm curious what you think about that. Imagine, don't you think that might be one of the biggest? I guess I got a couple things. I just jumped on you right there when you were talking. I'm sorry, but I guess what I'm saying is, do you agree that's probably one of the biggest ones? Because that's kind of an umbrella of, because even in your situation.
I put it in the book. That was in like one of the first things I started talking about was there's 3 ways to view the world. That I am a victim, the reality is unfair, or I create my reality, right? And almost everyone listening is going to fall into one of those 3 buckets, right? And this whole idea of victimhood, and that's kind of how the culture pushes. That's what the culture tries to push you to do. It's because the people at the very top want to hold you down, and they want you to be struggling because they don't want you to figure out what they're doing and how they're controlling everything, and they don't want you to have the time to be able to figure out everything about how they're doing. That's how they stay at the top, and they keep you down here at the bottom. And so that's why this victim mentality mindset is encouraged by the mainstream culture, because they want you to displace your blame onto others and to not look at yourself, because this makes you sick and it keeps you from taking control of your life. So the big thing to realize here, and this is just sort of like a gripe that I have with the way this reality was created, but essentially you have to just accept everything that's happened to you, no matter how brutal it was, and refuse to take this victim mindset, even if it's something that like I know it sounds like cruel of me to say, like someone's like a child abuse survivor, to take responsibility of that. It's I mean, I don't like the idea, but when you give away your response, the whole point. Okay, so the point of this is by taking responsibility for everything that's happened to you, you take the power back. And this is like a big theme throughout the whole book, is about standing in your own power and not giving your power away. Because when you blame someone else for something happening, you're essentially saying, I didn't have control over this. That's these other things that were out of my control caused that to happen, and I didn't have anything to do with it. This is the big problem. You can't do that, because when you do, it creates this sort of feedback loop where you start viewing everything in your life that way, and things can't work out for you because you're only viewing yourself as this victim of life. And so really it's about like standing in your sovereignty and being honest with yourself and these kind of things.
Yeah, you almost are like giving away your agency, right? I see another part of it. Yeah, I see like some people, man. I mean, there's obviously so many degrees of this, but some people, if they can get away with it, they'll do it, right? So meaning they know. I think this is probably maybe one of the most dangerous. There's different parts of this where people, they actually believe the lie. So like say they're a victim of some type of trauma or whatever, and they've kind of just like embraced this I have no control, I'm a victim mentality, and they truly believe it. But then there's this other part of it where there's like a consciously manipulative component, which is like, oh, I know the truth, I'm going to try to bury it and make myself forget it or revise it in my mind the best I can, but tactically lie just to get away with it to other people. And so what do you think about that? Kind of the aspect of like lying to yourself, and then because trying to actively try to lie to yourself or tricking yourself to block things out. Because I think a lot of people, that's going to be the easy way out they would try to do with conflict, right? Is to try to just block it out, ignore it, revise it, make up a new version of what actually happened in their mind, and then lie to themselves, right? So would you agree that just blocking something out is maybe one of the most dangerous ways that these conflicts can manifest as illness? Because then it's just lingering, building, etc., and you're in denial of it. You think that you agree with that, right? Like just blocking something out isn't going to prevent you from having the illness from that conflict.
Well, yeah, blocking it out is like, I don't think that people are like intentionally blocking it out. I think that they have just like such extreme cognitive dissonance when it comes to certain things that they don't have they feel like super uncomfortable about accepting this other thing over here that could possibly be true, because it makes them feel bad and it makes them scared or something like that. And so they don't want to acknowledge it. And when that happens, it could be that they're not wanting to acknowledge it, but then it also could be that there's an energetic block going on. which that's another thing to talk about in the book, is how energy, that's another big key to all of this, is how energy relates to sickness. Because when I'm saying things like your symptoms are little literal metaphors for problems in your life, what we're saying is that the energy is directing these things. So there's energy all around us. There's energy inside you, energy everywhere, and your mind can control this energy. I know that because I have experience doing it with qigong. I remember I showed you that when we met in, what was it, in Dallas, right? With the energy ball, and you can feel it, right? So this energy is everywhere, and you can control it. And when you are having these things that you're not able to see, there's some sort of a block. It's sort of like when you're trying to remember like something, and it's like on the tip of your tongue, and you can't remember what it is. But then like the moment like you stop thinking about it and you stop needing to remember it, then it just like pops right back into mind. It's like that, but like on a way bigger scale. These energetic blocks happen all the time. I mean, almost everybody knows somebody where they like, you could see they're making like the most obvious mistake in their life, and you can try to point it out and try to tell them, and it just like goes right over their head, and it's like it's so clear to you, but they can't see it. Like there's some sort of energetic block going on, and these blocks happen from previous trauma. So like when you have some sort of traumatic experience, the block goes up in order to protect you at that time. But then what happens is, as time goes on, if you don't integrate that experience, that block stays up, and then it sort of cuts off your awareness from what you're somehow not able to see, or you're thinking that you're not suppressing something because you're just not seeing it, but then it's getting suppressed anyways. So that's kind of how
Wow, yeah. That's crazy. So that would, the natural implication there being is for someone to really try and find these conflicts, right? It might require you go back. Which I think,
I spent a lot of time doing that.
And this is kind of one of the things that will be at least acknowledged kind of in the mainstream, right? Is that childhood trauma, for example, or something that you were growing up caused you to go into some type of like state that you had to protect yourself, right? And you developed some type of defense mechanism and kind of internalized that, especially if it was ongoing. And that then spills over into your adult life, right? Which like, so kind of like your childhood defense mechanisms will destroy your adult relationships, basically, right? That is like a mainstream kind of saying, and it's totally true. So this is like very interesting, right? Where applying what this idea, you need to go back and find what's going on. So I guess there may be a component of it with like what you're describing there, where an outside party perspective is probably pretty beneficial, right? Because I think that maybe one of the main things that causes people this is, let's say, relationships, and then there may be some type of inner feeling of inadequacy, financial stress, stuff like that. The relationships are probably a big part of it. And not just romantically involved relationships, right? Just relationships in general, interactions with other
Belief
people.
about yourself a lot, I think, is a big part of it.
Say it again?
Belief about yourself.
Okay, yeah.
Big part of it also. But
Yeah.
So like you were mentioning about if you feel inadequate in some certain kind of way. I also touched on this in the book, where what I've realized is the more self-aware that you become, the more like reality or your body sort of internalizes these contradictions when they occur. Because the more self-aware that you are, the less you can sort of hide. I don't want to say hide, that's not the right word. The less that these things,
you're shielded from an ignorance, basically.
Yeah. And then the more that you're aware, the more that, like, if you are suppressing something, it becomes a more significant thing. That's another thing I say in the book.
Okay.
Is how, like, when I described like my boundary issue, I point out that a lot of people would say, hey, I know people that have the same kind of boundary issues that you described. They're not as sick at all. And what I say is, like, I have very strong beliefs about authenticity, self-respect, and when I made this unconscious choice to sort of suppress those things, it got like, I felt it much more strongly than someone who didn't feel that strong about those kind of things.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I see that all the time. Like, so I see some people's behavior, right, where they were like, they manipulate so much, or they like live double lives, or they do all these things, right? And I think about, I'm like, I could never, I would feel so crazy doing that, you know? And you don't see them, they're not like crippling, and they don't have crippling diseases, you know? Um, and so, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
They're okay with it. They don't have a problem with it. They don't have a problem with doing it.
Yeah, like they don't have a moral conflict, or like it's not a, yeah, that totally makes sense.
That I ask myself all the time when I first started realizing this is, how do these elites act the way that they do and not be constantly super sick? And then eventually I came to this realization of what you just said. It's like it doesn't bother them.
So I think I figured that out. Tell me what you think about this. I think that they've convinced themselves that they're actually doing us a favor. So if you look at it like a cattle or whatever, right? So it's like they literally can't handle themselves. And so, and then also I think they just kind of put information, everything is consent based. And so like we choose to do it. We kind of need they'll throw us some cookie crumbs in the cattle pen or whatever. But like, I think they've actually adopted a worldview. I don't know. I won't start that whole thing there. There's a whole, there's many theories about it, which is that they actually believe that they came from the offspring of different entities, and that they're literally physically superior, or maybe not, or whatever. There's a lot of claims like that. But anyway, just that they think they're superior to us, and that we're basically inept, and that they have to do these things. They have to kind of deceive us and keep us tribalistic and focused on smaller things and guide us and stuff and give us these fiat currency systems because we can't take care of ourselves. So that would kind of make sense in what you're saying, right? It's like, well, they're able to live till they're older and not have these crippling diseases because they've actually convinced themselves, right, that not only is what they're doing not wrong, but that it's good.
I mean, I have a lot of things to say about this, and I think things that people are going to find pretty interesting. My perspective on this is, I don't know that they necessarily feel like they're doing it for us. I think that they definitely they taunt us. But when we look at like near-death experience reviews and these kind of things, we see that there's some sort of like manipulation going on. Like 90% of the cases will be like, oh, it's all love and light, or they met Jesus or Allah or whatever, or their family and blah, blah, blah. But then there's a 10% of these outlier cases where like we can clearly see like there's some sort of manipulation going on. That whatever is showing up that's saying it's Jesus is not Jesus. And what this all indicates to me is that there is, and what we see this both on like when we look at these experiences that people tell from the astral, but then also there's a microcosm of it also like down here on Earth. So my perspective is that everything works on so the entire reality is built on this idea of everyone has free will, and everything is allowed. So when we're seeing this manipulation, what's happening is they're needing to get the person experiencing the near-death experience their consent to reincarnate again. And so this idea of free will, it comes back to like everything on Earth also, where it's like when you saw the stuff with the COVID, and people were thinking that they had to they were going to lose their jobs and all this, and everything was just like about applying pressure to get your consent. And so I think that the reason that they have to deceive us for everything that they do is because they can't. We have more power. We have power. We have the ability to choose. Their only tool is deception, is the only tool that they have to use. So that's why like every like reality is just like layers upon layers upon layers of illusions, and everywhere you look, it's just like you're being deceived, because that's the only thing. That's how they keep you coming back and coming back again and again and again, is in order to is because they have to convince you to give your consent. And so that's why one of the main messages of the book is the last sentence I say in is stay grounded in your own authority. Don't let these doctors start taking your own, taking things from you when you can just when they're Okay, I said that I said that poorly. What I should have said was, a lot of people will go to these doctors and then just the doctor will tell them do this, this, and that, and they just blindly follow it without like doing any critical thinking. It's the same thing like with all this like New Age spiritual movement. Most of the people teaching New Age spirituality have it like completely wrong, backwards, and people just like give away their power. I'm not about that. I'm for you taking back your power. I'm not trying to. I don't want to take anything from anybody else. I'm just trying to stand on my own and tell other people, look, you don't have to do what they're telling you. Like you have the power to not consent.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I totally agree with this. And I think that this is a major mental plague in the truther community, right? Is like this, they hand over so much power to this kind of like unnamed group or whatever, when in reality, if you just look at everything for what it is exactly like you just said. It's all consent driven. They in fact put tons and tons of time, energy, and resources and planning into manufacturing consent. Okay, so, and again, I think this is why they maybe don't have this huge issue with it, because they kind of understand how the realm works a bit, and they're like, "Yo, you're consenting," And this is a belief. This is a pretty ancient belief, right? Which like the most efficient form of magic is to actually tell the person what you're about to do to deceive them. Like actually tell them, have them agree to it, and so now it's like it's on them. And I will say,
manifestation works too. That's how manifestation works. Like when you assert your frame to a group of people, then it strengthens that frame if no one rejects it. I just wanted to add that in. Sorry for interrupting.
No, yeah, no, you're good. Like I see people that they have less than favorable situations for whatever reason, and they just deny it and they revise it, and then they have like all these elements, and they are always kind of adopting this belief that they have no power. And I feel like even that in and of itself, right? Like kind of true, you have to give your consent like to yourself to believe that. Like it's all consent based.
Yeah.
You're having to approve yourself, right? Like your own thought process to consider yourself a victim. Because in reality, we can all sit back, we can look at our circumstances, and we can look at, okay, what did I do here? Right. But it's way easier to say, no, actually, I'm a victim, and blame it. And then I know some people, I won't give like too many specific. I just know people that have had kind of reoccurring mistakes. The same thing happened, like, say like multiple divorces. And it's like, it's very obvious why that person keeps getting divorced, right? Like they're super contentious and combative and like unruly, or like, the modern woman that maybe got by feminism or whatever, right? But then if you ask them to kind of tell their story, every one of those guys was just so terrible and they just had no control over it and they're just a victim. And I think that's so dangerous, man. I know some people like this in real life, and then they have like crippling elements and they're just compounding. And if you ask them any story about what's going on in their life, every one of them is like, they kind of paint this version of themselves in their mind where they were like this perfect person that was taken advantage of as a victim, and then they're sick. And so then you can see why it's way easier, bro. Like we kind of said at the beginning, right? It's way easier just to go to the doctor and be like, hey, tell me about how this isn't my fault. Right. And then give me something that's going to fix it since it's not my fault. And it's crazy. Like people will actually go down with the ship before they'll just say, okay, look, I need to, like, I will say this too, dude, kind of what you're suggesting that you've done and what needs to be done is difficult. If you've wronged someone in the past, right, and you were deceptive and you lied to them, that takes some like fortitude to then go find that person and make it right. Right? That's not a super easy task. That requires humility and fully swallowing your pride. Certainly, imagine if you revised what happened and told a bunch of other people about it. Right? So now I feel like people get kind of cornered. You see what I'm saying? Where they feel trapped. I guess what we got to do is like shake them and be like, hey, man, rip the Band-Aid off. Because in the grand scheme of things, if I could zoom you out of everywhere and say, hey, you're going to have like cancer take over your whole body, or you're going to have to go have a really uncomfortable decision or discussion where you had to admit you wronged someone and kind of like admit to everyone else you kind of misled them about what actually happened in that situation. Like, which one would you choose? Like the uncomfortable discussion, right? Or like crippling illness. Just people will never this is the tricky part about this, dude. Tell me what you think about this. say someone's in that situation, it's like you can see how they could maybe never accept it, right? Even if they get the very serious illness, like the system's set up in such a way to kind of coddle them. So it's not like someone's going to wake up with cancer and be like, oh my gosh, I need to do this work and realize what I'm doing wrong and wronging people. It's like, that doesn't even cross their mind. That's why I think your book's super important and anything talking about this.
Yeah, thanks. I made a video. I don't have like a big channel. I have only like maybe a few videos on there, and I don't like release them regularly just because I don't like need to. I'm not doing it for money. I put the videos out because I felt like it was important to say. And I have this one specific video. It's the longest one that I've made, and it essentially breaks down with 30 different examples showing how all the different angles that society is arranged and built in order to keep you stuck at the bottom. And it's sort of like where I like outline my entire like worldview and how I see things and how it's all happening. And yeah, everything about it. It's like these people who are poor and then get stuck in the prison system. Like they get busted with something, or they get like a parking, too many parking tickets or speeding or something like that. And eventually like they don't pay their debts to the whatever I'm trying to. Yeah, and then they get thrown into jail, and then they can't do anything there except wait until they get out. But then they get out and they don't have any money, and then they have to go meet their probation officer, yeah. And they're expecting them to like have a job, and it's like, okay, well, what if you miss your probation officer meeting, and now they're going to fine you for that? And then it's like, well, I'm trying to go to the job to make money so I can pay my bills and all that, but then like, I didn't pay this fine, and now I'm back stuck in the system. And it's the same thing like with guys who have these who get divorced and they get like screwed in divorce court, and then they get stuck paying all this alimony, and then some of them can't pay it, and then they end up getting thrown in jail. And then what this guy's supposed to do? It's like, you wanted me to pay the alimony, right? So then why are you putting me in jail? I can't make money when I'm in jail. Right. And it's like this whole like, it's very easy when you're in this reality to get stuck and just like get totally, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, just hung up by the way things are. If you don't like plan and prepare ahead of time and just like really think about what you're doing and all that, everything is meant to like just keep you down. And it's really difficult to go through, to do the things I'm saying that you have to do, but like you don't really have, like, what is your options? Your options are either experience this brutal sickness and these terrible life circumstances, or you decide you're going to take responsibility for your life. You're going to accept that you are. I don't like to say that we're creating our reality. I prefer to say like I'm influencing my reality, because I haven't seen enough evidence to show me that I'm absolutely creating it. But what I'm trying to say is acknowledge that you are at least influencing things that are happening, and you do have some amount of control, and to stop giving that away to other people, and to accept that this is just what you have to do if you want to live a life that's not filled with brutality of getting stuck in the system and being sick and all that. Yeah,
this is
Oh, and the channel, it's my full name. It's Peter Jennings, if anybody's interested.
Well, I'll look it up and drop the link in the chat too. I will say to anyone, like, I've done this a few times, right? Well, I've realized I've done something wrong. I will say, so one of the kind of flaws that I have had is I won't properly prioritize things, and then I'll lose track of things and stuff like that. But like when it's brought to my attention that I wronged someone, or I realize that, I feel like a very deep need to like make it right or something. When I was younger, I wasn't necessarily like that. I feel like when I was younger, I would be able to like kind of rationalize things maybe more. But still, even when I was younger, I just feel like if I couldn't like avoid it anymore, I had to make it right. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, like, when you do it, when you go do it, you immediately feel like lighter and like better, and like you're making that person feel better, and like just people should just go do it. That's I guess what I'm trying to say, because like actually when you do it, it's kind of like jumping off the cliff into the water. It's like doing a backflip. It's like whatever. It's like you're totally psyching yourself out. It ends up not being a big deal. It ends up being way better. And now what seemingly we're discovering is that things like that have huge implications. And yeah, I guess I'm hoping to encourage some people to kind of do that and to not lie, manipulate people, because I think that's a big one. I think a big one of it is honesty. That's what I think. I think that like lying and manipulating and I think that is really what ends up making people sick. And I think that it maybe kind of festers and builds up over time or something, you know, and they just get hit with these illnesses. I don't know. I know that was a lot of stuff there, but kind of all over the place. But I guess my point is, for me, I physically feel bad when I realize that I caused someone hurt or pain or did them wrong or whatever. And then I physically feel good the instant that I start trying to actively make it right. Like I can physically feel, but I physically feel better. So it doesn't surprise me at all that it would cause illness or heal the illness because I physically feel different. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think that that's the crazy part of it, is that I agree with you that I would never say I create this reality, like this kind of like full blown God complex. This is my thing, because how could that be the case for both of us? Right. Or whatever, you know, but we definitely influence our reality, like you said. And I think I find when I believe that I'm going to have a positive interaction or positive relationship or positive outcome and stuff, it oftentimes that's the case. It actually happens. And so I don't know. I think it's like that simple. We are being like pummeled with all kinds of trauma-based mind control and fear porn and propaganda and all these things that get us in these heightened stressful states. And then we're living in this really fast ADHD pace, like bam, bam, bam. We're showed all kinds of high intensity conflict all over social media. And so we just become so numb and used to this way to view the world, which is real negative and kind of like pessimistic and scared. So I think that's another big one. What do you think about like this, like the state of fear, which is also very prevalent in like the truther community as well. These people have discovered so many things and watched so many different, you know, terrain theory videos, but they're scared. They live in fear from all these truths and conspiracies they uncover. And then I think they begin to kind of manifest illness.
I certainly was there. I remember back when when was it when the election got stolen, and I wasn't really understanding most of the things that I understand now, and I remember feeling like I didn't understand at that point like how high the corruption went, and how like all of it was like it even got into like the Supreme Court. And at that point I was like, oh, like they have like total control. And I remember feeling like really like just like this deep sense of dread. And I remember even like just like laying in my room and feeling like the walls were like closing in on me, or like the room was like physically smaller, because I had sort of believed myself into this reality where everything was just closing in on me. And so there's different, like there's two prongs to it. There's events where reality will manifest certain events to try to like spark your mind and tell you like this is happening. Like what I'm going to say is when like negative things can happen in your reality, things that you really didn't want to happen, and like those are like that can happen in reference to like some of your beliefs or whatever. But then also it might not be that external circumstances that manifest, but sickness. So they both sort of have their place. I don't know how well I'm answering like what you said.
Well, I just went all over the place. I think people get scared, man. They, like in the truth community, they get scared. Like you said, your example is a perfect one, right? It's like I think fear is super dangerous, right? I think that fear makes you sick. I think that lying makes you sick. And so like your book like perfectly resonated with me. It didn't like fully take me off guard. It wasn't like this earth-shattering thing. It just like made sense, right? It's like the logical next step. It makes sense. And I begin to look at my own experiences and I'm like, okay, totally makes sense. So I'm like super excited about it because it's actually very empowering. So you can view this one way. Ironically, you can get scared or whatever, or overwhelmed or have anxiety, like, oh my gosh, so like, what all have I done wrong? Am I going to be able to remember it all? Am I going to be able to actually, or they're immediately thinking of something that happened to them or something that they did to someone. They're like, I can't face that. I can't deal with that. Right. And then they start getting more stress and more anxiety. So you can have kind of that perspective, which is like, wow, if this place that I live in, this realm, I'd rather choose not to even believe that, because I know that I'm being dishonest here. I know that I've developed a habit of lying to people or manipulating people, because a lot of people do that. A lot of people have childhood trauma, and their literal defense mechanism is to avoid any feeling of shame, for example, or any feeling of accountability. So they lie all the time. And so it's like, people are like, I'd rather not even deal with it. And I'd rather just believe that it's actually just what goes in my body. And that way I don't have to take any type of individual, personal, metaphysical responsibility. My point is that you can take that, but the way that I like that angle, but that's not how I felt at all. Like, listening to your book, that isn't how I felt at all. I listened to your book and had like a very empowering experience, right? I was like, this is amazing. Like that this is incredible if this is true, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of how I was trying to write it. I was trying to use my own personal experiences to try to help people see like the progression that I went down and why I came to the conclusions that I came to. I'm not trying to like outright state anything that I don't already like believe strongly. And when it comes to like, you mentioned a couple times things about like manipulating other people or taking advantage of them or whatever. I'm not trying to condone those things. I don't think that they're good. I am very cognizant in my attempts to not do that ever, but I don't necessarily see like a real problem with them based on the way this reality was constructed, because the entire purpose of it is to serve yourself. So if you are doing this manipulative thing and you're feeling bad about it, like, yeah, like this is going to cause problems for you. But it's like we were saying earlier, like with the elites, like if you're doing it and you don't feel bad about it, it gives you more power. This is how they gain power, is you consenting, giving your consent and allowing them to manipulate you. And so like that's actually kind of like a built-in thing into this specific reality that we're in, where it's just that if you don't feel bad about it, then you're fine. But if you do feel bad, I mean, I would feel bad about it. So like I would aim not to do those things. And the last thing that I would say is that like I realized it's not so much about needing to fix something with anyone else. If you wronged someone else, it's not really about like having to go and make it right with them. If it makes you feel better to do that, then sure, yeah, go do that. Like, who cares what anybody thinks anyways, right? It's more about like how you view and treat yourself, because that's what everything in this reality is about, is serving yourself. That's why it's set up in this way, for these people at the top to do everything that they can to confuse and trick and manipulate everyone down below, so they can serve themselves to stay at the top and keep you down here, so they can keep extracting from you. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So this is interesting. I don't necessarily disagree with you. So I think and I think that it may be made that way, right? Like you're saying that the only purpose is to serve yourself, and right, I would maybe take some issue with that. Meaning, I would say that
you can disagree with me.
No, I know. I'm saying like I would take issue with that. Meaning, I don't think the purpose is just to serve yourself. I think it's a little bit bigger than that, maybe. But what I'm trying to say is,
okay, go ahead.
Well, just real fast, yeah, because so obviously a lot of people kind of have on this channel have a similar worldview to me, and they may be perplexed as to why I would say I actually don't disagree with you with all the stuff you just said. But this is why. The evidence is pretty undeniable with what you just said. For example, right, there are very, very powerful people all the way up at the top that are constantly getting people in a state of confusion, manipulating them, deceiving them, and in fact, it works great for them. It actually gives them immense advantage and wealth and prosperity and power. So it directly works for them to get power, right? It specifically doesn't hurt them; it helps them. And so, so I think that's pretty undeniable. What I would say is, I think this, we may disagree here, but I would say, I think it's like that because maybe whatever happens after the material is based more on if you did what's right, as opposed to here, like for example, say that there is some type of like metaphysical balance or test or judgment or whatever after this place, right? Then it would make sense that in the material world, well, you can kind of get away with whatever because it's your decision how you live this. So say this place is like very temporal in terms of like your real existence or whatever, then it would be very short-sighted and stupid in in the grand scheme of things to have been like that. Does that make sense? Where maybe there's a balance, there's a metaphysical balance with the physical balance, which I've kind of like, this has been my position for a long time. And I hope I articulated that in a good way, which is basically that the people that are powerful here can get away with it because basically it's just like a very temporal, quick thing that they get. So yeah, they if they choose to go that route, they can, and they can get what they want. And I can't be mad at any type of creator that made this place because it's like everyone has free will. They're allowed to use their free will while they're here that way. And then, they just didn't do what was right. I will say one more thing. It is kind of disheartening though, because it's frustrating, right? To see someone that can be so evil or that can lie, and that knows that they'll say whatever they can get away with, and they'll only admit what they can't get away with, and they'll actively lie and deceive and manipulate and steal. And to think that they get no consequences, I guess is a little frustrating. Yeah. What's your take on all that? Sorry, I know it was a lot.
Yeah, well, maybe it made more sense if I sort of just like explained the entire perspective that I have, and why I believe these things. Like I don't just like randomly believe things. I have very strong reasons for why I think the way that I do, and the way that I see it is the rule that this place operates on. There's only one. It's free will, and everything's allowed. So, based on this idea that this is the premise of the entire reality, two different spiritual paths arise: service to self, service to others. And because those are the only two things that you can do. You can only serve yourself or serve another. And this whole idea of some people will like do things for other people because it makes them feel good. You're not serving others with that. You're serving yourself because you're doing it because you feel good about it. And so my perspective is that the creator is the structure. The creator is in everything, and it just doesn't care about us. It doesn't care about it. It doesn't care about what happens. It's sort of like, it's almost like running an experiment, it seems, or something like that, because it seems to be totally neutral, and it only allows this rule. It allows everyone to operate on this rule, and everything else that I was saying that was leading up to this sort of fits into this with the consent. And the way that we see in this particular reality, everything is set up for those at the top to serve themselves. And so my perspective is there's two different sets of realities: a service to others series of realities, and a service to self series of realities. And we somehow got stuck over here in the service to self one. That's kind of my perspective on it.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, I think that I have a different perspective, but I do find it interesting, and I do think, I think that I agree with you more than maybe you would think, and certainly more than maybe other people would instinctively think. Because
we
again,
agree on a lot of it. It's just that when we're talking about the overall big picture, and I'm just sort of laying it out, you're like, that doesn't really fit with mine. But then once we start talking about all the little things of why I believe this way, you're probably going to be like, oh yeah, I agree with that, and I agree with this, and I agree with that. You know what I'm saying?
I can already tell that because I've thought a lot about this general premise. But I have some experiences, right, that kind of, so I think they would fit within what you believe as well, because I believe them. Right. So since I believe these things with such conviction, it would actually still fit within here. But I have experiences, right, where I believe that the creator is going to take care of me, and he does. And I have experiences where I pray, get specific answers. I have experiences where like the normal person would be in complete panic mode, and we will not be. And people will be very perplexed about that because I truly believe, I know the creator is going to do something. And when I truly feel like I need a sign, I can ask for it and I get it. And so to me, that shows benevolence, not apathy, right? And as does kind of like just even the way this thing is made, right? Like I get to look in my daughter's eyes. And when I look in my daughter's eyes and I see my daughter and I see this little portion of me in her, right? It's like the fact that this place was made so I can experience that also seems to imply benevolence, right? And many other things, right? Just the sustainability of this place, the abundance of this place, etc. So I'm sure there could be a counter to all those things, right? Well,
It's
just
actually
make them
super bizarre. It's extremely
what?
bizarre. The counter to it is extremely bizarre, and I wouldn't believe it if I didn't go through such extensive, like just completely odd series of events over the course of like a year. And it's probably getting way too far in the weeds getting into that when this is a stream about health.
Yeah.
I can say that I did talk about some of it in the videos that I made on my channel. That stuff, it's super interesting to me because all I'm trying to do is constantly figure out like what is this place? Where are we? Why are things happening? Why do these certain things happen? What am I doing that's actually causing them to happen? How can I influence them to change? What's controlling everything? What's making things happen? And is there something outside of me that's working on me or working in my experience of reality? And there are some answers that I've gotten from some books that obviously no one's ever going to be able to actually truly know while we're stuck in it. But it's only a matter of like what makes the most sense. And for me, based on my experiences, the short end of it is I went through an extensive period of having these mystical experiences and just like these most bizarre things that would happen where it's like, whoa, reality is nothing like what I thought it was. And I started like realizing that there's something listening to me and is hearing what I'm saying and it's responding in turn. And I can ask things of this thing and it will bring them to me. So it's sort of like what you were saying with this whole, it's benevolent that is helping me. I'm asking for help in these ways and it's helping me. And yeah, absolutely. But what I've realized is that when I totally leaned into that and put everything into trying to understand that thing that you're thinking that's doing good for you, it's a manipulation. Something outside of you that is manipulating you in order to think that it's the creator doing it. And I know that's like super far out there, but this is the only explanation for the experiences that I've had, at least the only explanation I've come across, the experiences that I've had that have made enough sense to me to actually be confident enough to say it. Do I know that it's true? No. But if you start looking at these things and start being more critical about them and you look more into like the near-death experiences stuff, I think you start to see like maybe like some things aren't actually like really helping you, or maybe they are helping you, but not in a way that's beneficial. My only point is be more skeptical of it. Don't just trust that because something is happening in your reality and you're presuming it's the creator doing it and you're thinking that it's good. Like that's what I'm saying is don't just blindly trust that.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I mean, we will definitely disagree on this, but I think that this is what gives me, like, I will say, gives me such a sense of peace. Like and I think that it's a major variable in kind of this maybe advantage I have in terms of some things like illnesses and things like that, and just stress in general. But I'm super open-minded. I like to hear all perspectives, and I also think that what I think is like the creator made this place in like a incredible way. We can't really comprehend it. We cannot fully comprehend it, and it's like, for example, like quote unquote medicine's wrong about everything and the body is always just like showing it up and they don't know what they're talking about. And how powerful our mind is consistently coming in with new evidences. Like NDEs is a great example actually of just how much deeper it is than kind of like the mainstream story or the materialistic kind of view. So anyway, I guess what I'm saying is I do think it's pretty undeniable that we were given immense power. And like, as to the intention behind why that's the case, that's a separate discussion or debate maybe, but I think it's pretty undeniable we have lots of power. And I think that people need to realize that. I think that's kind of the overarching theme of this whole entire topic, this whole stream, right? Is like people need to realize that you have lots of power, thus you have lots of responsibility. And if you prioritize on, I have tons of power, I'm directly influencing my reality, like I'm the cause of it, and I'm not a victim of it, And when you do that, you can take so much power back. It's so empowering. And then you're not just gonna kind of sit here, right? And let whatever happens. I think that it's super dangerous, I guess, is what I'm saying, to believe like in this very rigid materialistic way that's like this happened, now I need something else material to fix it, and believing when someone tells you that you're broken or that this happened to you or that this illness is there or that this can only work this way, these limiting beliefs, right? And even kind of like these limited hangouts within that. um I think people should just be able, like, yo, why, like, step back and fully detach from the ego and preconceived notions, because truth doesn't fear investigation. Like, even with the topic that we were just talking about and how we don't see eye to eye, like, I'm not scared of what you're saying. I don't think you're scared of what I believe. Like, we would have conversations and both be open to figuring something out new, right? I think that's super important. I think I'm really trying to encourage the audience, because just in the handful of people in my personal life closest to me, I see this plaguing most of them. And they're going through this vicious cycle of going to a doctor, being told they have something that's either lifelong or incurable, or that they need the surgery, right? And they're being pumped with fear, and then they're believing it. And then they're coming and telling me stories about what's wrong with them. So they're coming and telling me. And once it gets to that point where I receive a phone call, and normally that means that they're so desperate they're reaching out to me because they know I don't believe in the conventional way and they know that I know a lot about natural approaches or have connections with that. When someone calls me and says, hey, this is happening. This is when your body does this and it can't be fixed. I'm going to maybe have to have surgery. I'm like, you really believe that? And that's actually the problem. It's hard to convey that to someone and get them to accept that. They'll actually get mad at you usually. And it's tough.
I've come to that conclusion that you can't really explain, you can't really like get through to anybody. You can't convince anybody of anything. You can only say it in a way that you hope that it connects with them and they can make the realization themselves, because no one is going to ever just like listen to what you're going to say, right? Like they're more interested in whatever they believe, or what they believe the people who they think know what they're doing are saying.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And that's the case with all truth, right? Like, you can't pummel the truth into someone or beat them into submission or whatever. But yeah, I think that this is incredible. Like, bro, I'm like so infatuated with the idea now, because I'm trying to isolate different things. Like, overall, I would say I'm very blessed, right? And I've maintained like a pretty healthy life, and I very rarely get very sick, and I'm blessed. And I think I've already explained. I think it has a lot to do with kind of how I believe, and also I that's such an ingrained belief. It's going nowhere, and I certainly can empathize with someone that maybe isn't in that position, right? Like, they've experienced some very serious ailments or had a very tough period where it's like that changes that whole dynamic. This belief I have that's almost like I've kind of got a little aura up that just these things can't come get me. Well, if one of them, something had to come got me, obviously that would kind of shift things around. So I get it. I empathize. But I encourage people to try to move over there. And so anyway, now I'm thinking, I guess what I'm trying to say to you is, like, now I'm like, okay, with the kind of breakout on my eyes thing, right? Like, to me, it's so fascinating when I found out there was a direct connection, and then I had to keep going deeper to find out, why am I allowing this to happen? What's the cause of it? What's my role in it? And then why am I afraid to do what needs to be done to prevent it? Right? And I had to, or to fix it. And I had to really go through that, make conscious decisions within myself, right? And then do what had to be done. And now that thing doesn't, like, people were saying that I looked like I was like super, like, on all kinds of drugs. My eyes were so noticeably messed up, and it would happen a lot right before the streams. And it was really, really surreal. The timing of it was surreal. It's like when I had a podcast or whatever it is, my eyes would start doing that. But then I realized, actually, it's because conveniently there was always this conflict, right, paired with those moments. So anyway, I guess that was a lot of ranting, but like, I think, like, so if you have headaches or you have restless leg syndrome or whatever these illnesses are, whatever titles have been given to them, maybe consider, I guess I'll ask you this question, because obviously, again, I encourage everyone to read the book, get the book in the description. You can get the paperback, gets here in a couple of days on Amazon, or you can get the Kindle, and then leave reviews for him to help it kind of be able to get popped up. More people can hear about this. It's the first link in the description. But I guess what I'll ask you is, so what would you suggest if someone's like, okay, you know what, I want to give this a chance. I think that there's some truth to this. What would kind of you suggest as be their, like, the first thing they need to do, right? Like, what do they need to start doing, right? Because obviously you can go like a million different ways, or it seems like kind of overwhelming to tell someone that they need to figure out any conflict going all the way back to trauma and all this stuff, right? So kind of how would you suggest someone kind of approach this if they want to figure it out? Would you say that they look at the illness and then try to reverse engineer it metaphorically, or would you say that they just need to zoom all the way out and figure out what conflicts they're ignoring? What would you say?
Well, the first thing that I recommend anybody to do is this exercise, which essentially what you do is you get like a piece of paper and a pen, or you get like a Word file, and you write down all the limiting beliefs that you have, all the excuses that you make for why your life isn't the way that you want it to be, all the things that hold you back from your life being the way you want, and just like get as many of those possible down on that piece of paper or on that file. Then after you're done with that, go through with each one of those and write the exact opposite. So what you're doing is you're changing the way that you're framing whatever this thing is that's holding you back. You can ask ChatGPT for help with this. It's very good at this. ChatGPT is something that I use like extensively. Like a lot of my time is spent interacting with that program because it understands these ideas that I'm talking about here. If you like, I talk about this in the book, all these different ways that you can use it. I mean, but also if you're really sick and don't know where to start, it's only 99 cents right now on Amazon. And I probably give like 40, 50 different ideas and like examples of how it happened in my life, what ways that you can go about figuring out how to do this, how to figure these things out. And the psychic roots of disease is a big help as well. But it's like I was saying earlier, it's a lot of times it can be obvious. It can be like what specific things in your life are just like really making it like terrible, like what relationships or all that. But
right,
yeah, that reframing the limiting belief exercise, that one for me. So like when I was like most of my life up until I got sick, I lived this irrationally overconfident way where I just thought like everything was going to work out for me, and I didn't ever worry about anything. Once I got sick, I was saying earlier how it's sort of like it breaks you down when you're like that sick for so long, and eventually, like one day, I was prompted to do this exercise, and almost immediately, as I started like reframing these beliefs, I thought, man, what a dunce I am. Like, because all these things that I never used to, like before I got sick, I never would have thought, let these ideas or beliefs limit me. I never would have accepted them for myself. But once I got sick, I had to rationalize it in some way. And it ended up being all of these limiting beliefs that I have. And as soon as I did that, it was like a light clicked in my head. I was like, whoa, like, and I felt like a significant shift. Like, I don't want to say like I didn't get better from that, but I did. Like, it was a big start because it helped me to realize like who I was before and who I had become, and why I didn't really like this part of this version of me, because of what my life was terrible. I couldn't do anything. I was stuck in the house feeling terrible. But like that one, that was like a real big one. So there's tons of ways to do it.
And you have quite a bit of, like you said, quite a bit of advice in the book. And that's why people should go get the book, because you actually give quite a bit of pointers and kind of explain even like the process you got to realizing them. And that's like maybe one of the greatest values in the book, in my opinion. Right.
It's unfortunate there's not people out there who understand this, who like see patients, you know? I mean, yeah. I almost feel like I should be out there like speaking to like auditoriums full of doctors. But I mean, this reality that we live in, there's no way that's going to happen, right?
Yeah, or that a doctor would ever even implement that. The system is set up in such a way, it's just so stupid. Someone goes to medical school. I know doctors that have found out a lot of stuff a lot of truther-based things in terms of the facts that modern medicine's wrong. But they're stuck, bro. Right? Like they made the decision that was going to be their job. Now, obviously, I know a lot of super based MDs that jumped up out of the system, made their own practice, and just all this stuff. But I'm just saying, right? Like, even if you could equip a lot of modern doctors with this information, they would not use it.
They built their entire perspective on life and reality based on this mistaken belief that they know what they're doing, and that that all the time they spent studying and learning in medical school, they need that to mean something. And when you try to tell them like all that stuff is wrong, and like imagine what that's like for that person. It's like their whole life is probably like flipped completely upside down. That's why it's so hard for them to accept it. And then obviously there are a few who do accept that, but even then, I'm still not seeing them really talk about this the way that I am. And I guess I don't know if they need to make money or what. I don't know why. I'm not trying to like call anybody out or anything, but people should be talking about this. You know, I'm not sure why they aren't, and I can understand why these doctors why they have such a problem with it. I mean, also like they get all this medical debt, right? They have like hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt. And then if they realize this, and this is what you're supposed to tell them, like, oh, you're not going to use it now. You can't use it. You can't use that to pay off all this debt. It's just it's an impossible situation for those people. You know? Yeah,
or it just requires like you have a ton of like principle over profit and integrity, and it's just very rare nowadays that people would do things like that. Like people won't even talk about certain topics if it'll like, you know, be detrimental to their viewership, right? So it's like, of course, when you're talking about something like a doctor. So I will say I'm like very interested in it, and I want to like really invest quite a bit of research into it, and more so experimentation, right? With myself and maybe with some other people that I talk to and stuff like that, because I'm very passionate about people getting healthy, and I've been able to kind of make some pretty significant changes in my life recently. And then I've had these periods where I kind of like lack on them, and I feel like so much better, like a different person. So I want other people to feel like that, I guess what I'm saying. And so I want to incorporate this.
Like a group, like setting up some sort of a group where like we could bring some of your listeners in who want to work on this, and we can sort of like point them, listen to what they're saying, and sort of point in the direction.
I'm totally down and totally down. And then what can happen is you start to get social proof and people figuring stuff out together, and you start to see overlapping commonalities. And then we can like, if people feel open and are comfortable enough to open up and share, now we start to kind of get, you know, evidence where we can compile it and figure out like, oh, there's a reoccurring theme, right? When people have this problem, they start having this illness or whatever. So I'm all for it. Maybe we'll talk about it and figure out the best way to do that. Obviously, we could create a Telegram group. We could create. There's another platform
I used to coach poker. I would have like there were people who would coach like individually, but then I would have like a group where it was like a forum, and then like a bunch of people would all like post their hands, and then we'd like generate discussion. It could be something like that, like a forum.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely down. Well, I say we figure it out, put it together. Yeah, and then we'll announce it. Cool, man. What was I? Oh yeah. So just like in general. So you like, and then we can wrap this up here in a bit if you want. I guess it's been a while, but I guess what I'm saying is I do really want to kind of bring attention to this, and I'm hoping that maybe I can do some direct kind of cause and effect establishment myself. I think something like what you're saying is great, like that group, and then maybe that'll help encourage people to kind of go do this, because you're not the only person I know. I guess I'll say that kind of as the final thing here is like, you're not the only person I know that's very convicted about this, has like substantial anecdotal evidence. I hear this all the time. I hear this from all kinds of people. And I just heard about someone that was told that they had cancer and that it spread through their whole body, and they only had 9 weeks to live, and that the chemo wouldn't even help, and they had no hope, and just to go home and die. And then what they actually did was, of course, go talk to their friend who told them to do a couple of things naturally, and the cancer's completely gone, you know, in just a matter of weeks. And I think largely because their friend was there for them to convince them that actually there is hope and you're not going to die, right? And then they implemented these things and they believed it and they got better. So I think this is like super important that we hone in on this, we polish it, we refine it, we figure it out, we work together, and we actually kind of not only figure it out, but then get the word out there. And that's why I'm a big fan of your book. And I think that some of the like exercises in your book, I think are seemingly like some of them are very simple, but very impactful.
I really appreciate all that positive stuff that you just said about it.
Yeah,
I don't think I put like exactly like exercise. It's not like an exercise book. It's not like that. It's
no.
For people who are thinking about reading it. It's more just like it's almost like a book of wisdom, kind of, where I'm just like telling you like about like my life experiences and how I viewed how I came to these conclusions and sort of like it doesn't just help with people who are sick. It helps with anybody who just like is leading a crummy life, because it turns out to be the case that healing from severe illness and fixing a life that's falling apart, it's the same thing. It's the same things that you're doing in order to accomplish either.
Yeah, that's a very interesting, great point as well. Well, cool, man. Hopefully people check it out, and then we'll make a group, and then we can maybe really everyone leave a review if you get the book. I'll actually go leave one as well.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else you want to say before we wrap it up? You want to say to the people?
I think that we covered most of it. If anybody's interested in hearing more about, like, I don't have any health stuff on the channel that I've been making videos, just because like I mean I'm not just like only interested in the health thing. I was interested in the health thing because I was really sick, and if you can't live your life, like that's the most important thing. So that was why I got into that. But I'm like more interested in like the bigger questions and understanding like the spiritual experiences that I've had and those kind of things. So if you're interested in hearing about that, it's my name, Peter Jennings, on YouTube.
Okay, yeah, and I'm about to actually drop the link in the chat. Yeah, so go give him a follow, show him some love, and yeah, maybe enough people pop on over there, give you some love that you'll maybe start streaming or something.
You can see like when you're asking me questions and I'm trying to answer them, I like kind of fumble over my words sometimes, or I'll tell a story that didn't actually make sense to the thing that you asked.
You gotta work. You just experience, bro.
For me, well, the way my mind, like I can see how your mind works in that like you're very quick with your thoughts and you come to conclusions very fast. Mine, like I'm very good at like getting very deep into stuff, but it kind of takes me a little bit more time to sort of formulate my ideas and then say them in the way that I need to. So for me, it's more like short videos that I'm editing to try to make my story as congruent as I can. Maybe it'll make more sense at some point to just ramble. I don't know. I feel like my rambles aren't like, I find your rambles quite interesting. Like when I'm watching some of your streams and you'll say like, oh, I guess I'm kind of rambling now. Yeah. But like whenever you say that, I'm like, oh, dude, you should have kept going. But I feel like I'm maybe not as good at that. We'll see. Maybe I'll improve.
Yeah, no worries. We all have.
I believe enough, right?
Yeah, we all have our thing, man. Like I feel like I was pretty uncomfortable when I first started, but I can rant. That's for sure. Well, cool, man. Thank you so much for jumping on, bro. And I will once again. I encourage people to check it out, dude. It's super dope. It's only $1. That's like what excuse you have. Go check it out and even like throw it on and listen to it. I think you can use like Speechify, Speechify AI. Boom, pick your person, run the drop the PDF or drop whatever's in there. Or Kindle may also do it. But anyway, check it out. Read it or listen to it, and dude, try it out. Tell us what you think. Give us some feedback. Give some feedback in the reviews and even in the comments. If anyone has some experiences related to this, drop it in the comments and let us know about it. And I guess what I want to say here and put out into the ether is like, this is not a very accepted or popular belief, right? Or understanding. And for obvious reasons, because Like, how are they going to make money on that? You go to the doctor and they say, hey, man, hey, you need to go fix this at home, bro. We're not going to make money on that. So we're kind of on our own to do it. So if we can all come together, share our experiences, right, and start to boil it down, we can maybe make a huge impact on the world, I guess. So cool, brother.
And if anybody has any criticism for me, I'm open to that too. Because like I said, I'm not like tied to any particular idea. It's just only what makes sense and what's true, So anybody, like, I wouldn't take it personally if somebody said, oh, I don't believe what you're saying, or I don't understand, I don't buy into this idea or that idea. It doesn't make any difference to me. But yeah, I appreciate Austin saying all these nice things about what I wrote and bring me on here to share this message. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, brother. And we'll catch up soon, man. Thanks for jumping on.
All right.
Later. All right, I'll wrap this up for you guys, but shout out to my boy Peter. Bro, I know that it's like, I'm just telling you guys, man, this was like, I'm like tripping out about it the last like couple weeks. I'm thinking about it a lot. I'm super fascinated, and I'm telling you guys, it's totally true. It's totally true. Don't believe me, man? Go test it out. Go look for it. Your mind is insanely powerful, and you are creating major portions of your reality. You are influencing your reality. I do like that caveat, that critique. Dude, just consider that possibility. Let me ask you this question. If that's true, isn't it important? Wouldn't you want to know? And for the mere possibility it could be true, isn't it probably worthy of investigation? I think so. And then once you do that, you might be like, wow. Like I said, I think it's super empowering, and hopefully that's what you guys take away from it, is like, wow. So the way this place is designed is I'm like in a video game almost, and I actually can control it and throw some combos in there, right? Like, I actually have an immense amount of control of what's going on. And then maybe even like taking more of a positive angle here. It's like, yo, look at all this stuff that's happening. This, luckily, I'm given signs to kind of know what I need to correct, to have more advantage, or to better be equipped to maneuver this reality. So, or maybe I'm here to learn a certain thing, and this is what I need to now learn. And now even my body gives me warning signs and tells me what I need to learn. So I know this is a pretty deep and profound thing. It has some profound implications, and hopefully you guys enjoy the show. And yeah, that's it. I won't rant too long about this, but it's a link in the description if you want to grab the book. And I will catch up with you guys soon. Some housekeeping stuff. I think I will probably stream tomorrow. I travel Friday. I'm hoping to have the summit announced with all the specifics, and then we're going to launch kind of like a pre-sale deal. So if you get the tickets early, you get a little bit of a surprise, and I will announce the surprise obviously once the tickets are for sale. So stay tuned for that pretty soon. We may not even reveal all the speakers right off the rip, but that should be cool. And we are going to do a community fast, I believe the 17th, 18th. So you can go to Etheric State and grab your blends. And you don't have to grab your blends. You can use water with salt and lemon, just not quite as good. So those are kind of the same basic announcements. I will be streaming again tomorrow, but not Friday, maybe Saturday, because I'm not doing Friday. We'll see. I think that's all I got for you guys. So, all right, I'm going to get out of here. I am actually not going to play the outro song. I think it messed up last time. I guess I can play it. Okay, so Seek and Speak Truth. I don't think I have any. Oh, don't let me miss any super chats. I believe inspiration equals in spirit, and that's why through art messages come through even when the artist isn't trying, because there's a divine influence. Interesting. Thank you for the support, Flat Out Fledge. For my ticket, I sneaked in free. Well, Ghost Rider, thank you so much. And I think that's it. All right, cool. Seek and Speak Truth unequivocally. The weak find contentment in the consensus of ignorance. And like I said, show some love in the comments, or more so just like opinions, critiques, any relevant stories or experiences, and try to like and share the show. So I think we could really do something pretty cool if everyone starts focusing on this and working together. So, and also remember, what's popular is rarely true, and what's true is rarely popular. So just think for yourself. Who cares what other people think? They're always going to hate on you. And I'll catch up with you on the flip. Peace.
That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Rappers acting say they high, say they sipping pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up, had to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in the field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Took the way you saw the world, then distorted it. Now you think you wanna rock that twirl somewhere orbiting. Theories disproportionate, the truth distorted quick with a forceful grip. They force a simple that we absorbing quick. Took the people's signature that mean extorted it. They forging it. If news anchors informant to informing them there's a surplus, but they tell us there are shortages. Credit economy mortgages, dollar that's supported with empty fortresses. But what's important is this: we courting ships, important gifts. Of course it is, but extortion is in accordance with an assortment list of foreign tricks we ignoring, which informing this, informant this. It looked like we were snoring tricked. Pedophilia and the government endorsing it. Yeah, eugenics is exactly what abortion is. You just vilify those insubordinate. Way to matrix engineer, that's unfortunate. Geopolitically we in the field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Rappers actors say they high, say they sipping pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up just to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in the field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real?